Both qualitative and quantitative data provide different type of evidence, which when combined can provide rich and valuable insights into the phenomena being studied. This session will introduce participants to mixed method research, the benefits of mixing different types of data, and how to design a mixed method study. So over to you, Dr. Altaf.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gohar. It's really a kind of introduction. And thank you everybody for being here. As I see the list, there are many students and colleagues at different places who are participating. I'll just share the screen, which will make it easier for us to begin. So, yes, I think we did. This is always a bit of a hassle. So I have to go to what they call.
We can see your screen.
You can see.
Yeah, if you can click on enable editing, I would suggest.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I think it's now shared. So I'll just pause share and because it won't work. Stopping share and then I'll do it in a minute.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, I just enable. I saw it and then I thought I should do it and then I didn't. These are the signs of getting old. Okay, so let me do it again and let's see how it works. Here we are. Now I wanted to make it full screen. It's kind of funny if it's working.
So, right, left, towards your right, left, there's I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notification towards the right, left.
Here?
Right side and downwards at the end where it says 54% plus minus and then a notification with that. Do you see at the bottom notes, comments?
No, it's something a bit funny that's happening because I'm having a bar and then I'm not seeing the full one. So I don't know what I did, but
I think so. If you can move to the next slide, I can see if it is visible. So we can go with that. Yeah. Yes, sir, we can see it clearly.
Yeah, but the thing is that it shows itself separately. Let me
yes,
go
this one.
Then, yeah, yeah, here we are.
There
Sorry.
You are. No worries,
yeah,
sir.
Yeah. Okay. So shall we begin? There is somebody in the chat. I hope there's not a
yes,
question.
Sir. Let's
yeah,
start.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for. Okay, so I always begin with one of the basic questions that why do we do research anyway? Like I say it because every year I sit on kind of I'm a professor of mass communication, so at least by June I have been an external examiner to more than 10 PhD defenses. So every year these are kind of 20, 30 guys getting their degrees and somehow I am involved. So one of the basic questions is at times when I look at many candidates, they know the process, but they don't know the reason that why do we do research. And I think it's a very important question to consider always that what are the, I won't go into the role of universities, but what does research do? Like research either find answers to questions in many areas of life, in natural sciences and social sciences. And it's also the reason why we have universities. And research also innovates. Many times we think that innovation is kind of a prerogative of natural sciences, which seems correct also because there are new machines building, there are new ideas coming. But the line between natural and social sciences is quite blurry when it comes to what benefits we offer to society. So mostly, I won't spend too much time on it, but just touching upon the question that the reason we do research is basically that's the reason we are in this business. Like universities, job is basically to give answer to social questions. Like these social questions, societal questions, I must say, are not simply making machines or making life comfortable in the sense of technology or other innovations that happen in natural sciences, but also to have smooth uh, functioning of a society, cultural progress, and many of the social issues and problems that we need to answer. So I always think that it's a good thing to begin with. So one of these things is that and again, I am speaking from experience, and I am not blaming anybody, but at times this is what we call the out of the box thinking. That's very much needed when you go into research. And especially in Pakistan, because we are very structured when it comes to education, from primary to higher education. So when you reach a point where you're doing research, be it undergrad or uh, graduate research, which is also called postgraduate research in Pakistan, I was very confused whether graduate research is something else, because outside our country, most of the time, graduate research means what we call MPhil and PhD. But I was a bit confused. I thought there might be something like after PhD, since there is. Like in Germany, you used to write what they call a Habilitationsschrift, which is after your PhD. So it takes 6 years, stuff like that. So uh, what I say is basically that we lack in what we call a reflective and theory based research at times. We don't approach research that, but rather we, as I said, we go into the process and we say, okay, I do this, and these will be the results, and I bank upon such and such researches in the area, and okay, let's move from that, and then I will write something, and then I will get a degree, which will help me get a better job. And I must say here that there is nothing wrong with thinking like that. Like the famous German sociologist Max Weber wrote two books which are very important. If you get a chance, please do read them. And it's Politics as a Vocation and Knowledge as a Vocation. Like, how would you survive in the academic world if you decide to get into an academic position? It's a 50 plus pages book, and I'll advise you to read it. It will, there is nothing new about it, but we can see that knowledge for the sake of getting a better life for yourself is no sin. Like somebody in the early 20th century, almost 100 years back, did write about it, how to survive in the academia. And also what I would always advise is that we should go into what we call a systemic evaluative thinking process, where we always critically evaluate whatever we are doing. Like, for example, if you are writing your research questions, be self-critical. Don't try to satisfy a number, or don't try to satisfy your supervisor or the committee that is there, because the first and foremost supervision is your own, like satisfaction is your own. So this critical systemic approach is very important, because you evaluate every step of the way. And I'll just read the statement that while the short-term purpose of your research is to fulfill the requirements of an advanced degree, the larger and longer-term purpose is to develop a mindset for inquiry. Like this is very important to understand, that when we are into research, uh, it's a process which disciplines us in an organized thinking pattern, where we make it a habit of our mind, and we work like that. Like that document that you produce is important. but more importantly is the discipline that you get out of PhD study. So these were just a few points that I wanted to consider. I'll just keep the previous slide here. Now, I just wanted to say a few things about why do we do mixed method research? Like, why don't we just do qualitative or quantitative? And there is a philosophical question behind it, and it's not difficult. It's nothing extraordinary, but it's a simple question: is that from the beginning of modern any civilization, there is always this question whether society is a simple routine that people follow, or whether it's a complex phenomenon. Like we think, and there are proofs of it around the globe, that society is a complex phenomenon. So you can't really understand social issues by simply saying, okay, I'll do a survey or I'll do a qualitative one, because most of the time what quantitative research does is give a rational and a larger structure to search and to certain answers. So it asks questions and it gets answers. But at the same time, qualitative research is what really brings in the affective part of any social phenomenon. So if we say that while quantitative research rationalizes a lot of what we do, or give a reason to what we do, or not, or doesn't give a reason. For example, at times your hypotheses do get rejected. Uh, Qualitative research humanizes it. But at the same time, if you are simply banking upon qualitative research, it will just become anecdotal. So mixed method research is used because many thinkers believe and many civilizations believe in the complexity of human society, and also the investigation of human society. Now, the first thinker who really challenged this, what we call the sanctity of society, like before Foucault, many people thought that society is a sacred institution, which still is. And you can't really get into criticizing the structure of society, because then you will just break the fabric. So Foucault was amongst the many thinkers who said, no, society could be investigated, and you can ask questions about social processes. And also the dialectical process that began in modern philosophy from Hegel and came down to Marxist theories, the Frankfurt School included. So they said the society is a complex phenomenon, and when you try to understand it, you have to go through a dialectic process. And a dialectic process means that you go into the rational realm, and at the same time you go into the affective realm, and then you find a consensus somehow and try to answer human questions. So when we get into what we call mixed method research, there are a few questions that we need to ask ourselves. And these are not different from other researches. Like sometimes when we say there are two fallacies, basically, when you follow research. On the one hand, some people will say, like, mixing up both is bringing the two together. Like there is no individual standing of a mixed method research, which is not true. It's different. It's not that you do one quantitative and you do one qualitative and you say, okay, I'll be doing both of these at the same time, and this will be the same as having a quantitative and qualitative study. So one should always know what they would like to know and how they would like to know. And this is the next question, that what will be the detailed quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method research questions that you hope to address? Like, one is, what do you want to get? Like, for example, I have seen some comments, and where, for example, if we want to study kind of in health sciences, if we want to understand patients' mental well-being within a hospital, so we need both Like we need to know how many patients are there and how are they feeling. So we say, okay, we go for a quantitative one. But then we really have to understand that how each and every patient is feeling and how are they responding to what is going on in this hospital. And so you see, you can't do it with one, because on the one hand you need a sample which gives you an idea of uh, of what a general perception is, but at the same time you want to go to an in-depth analysis of how people are feeling about things. So you humanize this quantitative aspect with qualitative. This is just an example. So there are questions that you have, and you will try to, that you should focus on what do you want to achieve out of that. For example, if you want to achieve in health sciences the patient satisfaction with what we call with a health process in a hospital or in many hospitals. So you say, this is what I would like to do, and then you find you design how would you do that, which will come first, which, if you are, you know that you have to have an idea of how the rational and the effective works. So you know that you are going into a quantitative and qualitative method, but how would you use that? So these, what quantitative and qualitative data will you collect and analyze? So this comes to the plan, basically the instruments. Which instruments will you use? For example, will you go into in-depth interviews or FGDs? Or will you go for a questionnaire which is written, or would you like to do something else, like you want to rely on data only? And again, the same is which rigorous methods will you use to collect data and or engage stakeholders, like who would you like to involve both areas in your research? For example, who do you, these are smaller questions, but at times I see people struggling with that. Like, for example, I'm doing I'll stick to the health sciences one and not go into journalism, which is my field. But I see, okay, I'll just get a survey of that many hospitals. But did I plan to talk to people at hospitals who are the decision makers? Will they allow me? Like, these are the small questions that we. So stakeholders are two, basically. One, who are part of your research, without whose help you can't do the research. For example, somebody might allow you to do a survey, but they won't allow you to get into a hospital and interview patients. They said, no, we don't want it. So you should know how to strategize. And again, data collection is not simply asking questions, but also strategizing it. So these are the methods, basically. And how will you integrate data in a way that allows you to address the first question, like what do you want to know? Because that's the connecting question. Because you have to always keep in mind, what exactly do you want to know? But like in the health sciences way, when I said I want to know patient satisfaction with the process of their well-being in hospital. So when you draft a plan, you should never lose sight of the fact that that's what you want to do. Because and I say this because I see kind of 87 questionnaires, and you send questionnaires to people and they never fill it because it's not possible. The reason is that you, but like I will say, I won't say you because you might think that it's about you, because you just, if you focus on one question and don't go for any further data collection that I'll use it for another paper, because that's what when you do that, you'll be adding questions. Nobody will be answering those questions. You should be in and out 15-20 minutes maximum if you share a questionnaire with somebody. And also the rationale for mixing using the mixed method is like it's very clear, but I just wanted to say, like, basically you get many perspectives through which you can validate your study. You have an effective realm, you have a rational one, and you get data in statistical fashion, and you could get data in terms of transcripts, interviews, or tapes, which basically is a better way to understand human situations. And naturally, it builds comprehensive understanding because you say, okay, I'm not simply giving you the number where people tick the boxes, but here is what they thought about what they ticked. So that's naturally giving back a comprehensive understanding. And also, one important thing is that if you have, in the last slide, I won't go there, but if you look at the first question and then you develop the whole structure around that, so basically it helps you in explaining quantitative data results because you have statistical results, and a good, well-woven qualitative companion in a mixed research will allow you to explain data, and vice versa. Like at the same time, qualitative research becomes simply what we call anecdotal if we don't have support from the quantitative side, especially when there are larger groups. And definitely there are better contextualized measures. So I'll just say that qualitative, and why do you mix research? Basically, the reason we mix research is this: I've already answered the question, but what I'll say is that mixed method research, just to recap, is mixing quantitative and qualitative, and the reason we mix them is just a recap of what I already said. Is that you want to have a comprehensive understanding of a human situation, and you want to dig deep into human problems. The word problem is not always negative, as you already know. This is what we call it. Basically, there is a problem. So many, like, it's not a layman problem, but it's just a social need that you are trying to fulfill. And then the affective and the rational, I already mentioned it, because most of the time, when you do quantitative research, you get a very rational answer to many questions. But if you go into I'm just looking at a question. Okay, I'll answer this. It's about journalism. Who wrote them? Most of them. Oh, I'll share the books. There are some and there are others. And there were questions. And then the thing that works basically is that you blend both and you get a more reasonable answer to, as I said earlier, to a very complex human situation. What we do in mixed method research is we focus our rationale, our theory behind it is that we take society as a complex phenomenon, be it an individual or there be many people. We think that you can't just get a straight answer for human situations. There are many things at play, and we have to understand that, like individual personalities, of institutional structures, social backgrounds, and all these things, that these can't be answered by using one method. And I already said it's not just mixing the two. Like it's a separate phenomenon, which just gives you a better insight into. I was just looking for another slide. Oh, no. Yes, there is another one. Yeah. And this is the last part because I don't want to just, it's already 28 minutes or more than 20 minutes. I'll just go into the implementing phase, and I'll stop there. We can talk about it endlessly, but I think it's good that we get into a question answer session. So how do we implement these plans basically? So there are basically four main ways of organizing mixed method research. One of them is what we call a convergent or parallel design. Convergent and parallel design means that that both the qualitative and quantitative instruments are used at one and the same time. Like you just do it at the same time, which is I never did that, honestly. But it's one way of doing it, and it's very useful at times, especially when you get into what we call organizational structural research, because you won't have the what we call the luxury of just returning to the same population again and again, because it's always good that if you are going into organizational research, so you get into a convergent parallel design, which where you develop the quantitative and qualitative instruments at one and the same time, and then you use them. You just go swiftly in and out. So your visit is only once, or whatever time frame you have given, 7 days, 5 days, you do it and you're out. So but it's a hassle. It's a hassle for researchers because quantitative research has its own requirements and stresses, whereas qualitative their own. So doing it at the same time is at times not easy. The embedded design is that basically what you do is that within the quantitative design, you have qualitative questions. And within the qualitative design, you have quantitative data. Like, let me give you an example. When you give what we call opinion statements, like you give a Likert scale with 5, 6, 7 opinion statement, asking somebody questions, like you ask a question that how is the cleanliness in the hospital? How would you rate it from 1 to 5? So when you are giving them 1 to 5, and you are giving them opinion statement, although it's a quantitative tool, but it's doing qualitative work because somebody is grading that, and uh, you have those statements, and behind those statements, you know what if somebody responds to them, what question will be answered. So this is pretty much qualitative in a quantitative research. So embedded designs are useful. Embedded designs, again, as I said, if you have a smaller window of time and patience, keep in mind that organizations, individuals' patience is not unlimited. They might agree to support your research, but they might back off. So at times it's very good to have those the structures in place. Then there is this explanatory sequential research, which I find very useful in kind of where do you have the time and luxury. So what you do is that you develop you in a sequential way. You do the quantitative first, and then you do the qualitative. So basically, the results that you get from the quantitative research are useful in developing, like not in developing, but yes, at times also, like in strengthening your qualitative method. And it's just the thing is that it explains the quantitative one. Most if you have the quantitative one first, then the next one, the use of qualitative method after the quantitative method is explanatory, basically, as from the very word, like that you have data and you get explanation. And the last one is, there are many, but these are the 4 ones. Exploratory sequential. Like if you do a qualitative research first, like you do FGDs and you do in-depth interviews and you do participant observation, you do that. And then you say, okay, now I'll do the quantitative one. So you have basically the luxury to design your questionnaire in the light of your quantitative instrument in the light of the experiences you get. So what you do is you have the explanation already. You just explore it, you generalize it. And when you generalize it, it's very helpful. So these are the 4 approaches. As far as the instruments are concerned, these are the same that we use in quantitative and qualitative research: survey methods and statistical methods, which are most of the time seen as kind of basically giving us a general idea of what's going on. And then we have participant observation, FGDs, and also in-depth interviews. But here, one word of advice is that when people do qualitative research, they just go into all of these. You have to really make sure that you are doing the right thing. You are not overburdening yourself. Like like when you use these both, and this is beyond this slide, basically, when you implement a plan and you have a quantitative instrument, so the quantitative instrument just gives you the most important thing in a quantitative instrument is that you develop a plan and you design a population, you choose a population that is representative of the larger group that you want to get some ideas about. Like you are going to, some people do that, and I just give you an example. And I get those a lot, and people are in trouble. Like good researchers in Pakistan get into trouble. Like, what is the impact of higher education certain policy on Pakistan? Now the question is that if you say Pakistan, it's a country of 250 million people with many universities around the country. Would it be possible for you to go to all? So if you say I have 200 questions, my threshold is 200 questionnaires, and I'll say, how would you get a useful sample out of 200 questions? If somebody says even for 250 million, I'll 2,000 to, I say no. So just restrict yourself to a representative sample. Like do a study on Lahore, a big city, like how many, 20 million or more. It's not less than 20 million. I think it's said to be 115, but it's more. So in the quantitative design, it's very important that your instrument is designed in a way where you don't get into trouble by not being representative. The qualitative design, on the other hand, has very different working. It ends at a saturation point. Like you are into FGDs and you are asking questions, and you say, okay, that's it. People have started repeating themselves after 1.5 hours. Don't go any further. Just stop it there, and then you will get something out of it. So I'll just stop here. And I know that it's a theme which is very exhaustive, but I would like to have any questions. I have a couple. So Gauhar, if you can help me with it, if somebody wants to ask a question, or we go into the chat box, any comments if you have.
So we do have a few comments.
Yeah, I saw let me begin with the first one.
Okay, I'll read them out.
I'll do that. These are in front of me.
Okay.
So Murtaza, I don't know where, there is no name written. So Murtaza Khan, he has suggested book. Yes, I have suggested a couple of books, and I'll share more. I'll share it, and when you get the recordings, you will have more these. Okay, Miss Amna. She said, if we were to study journalists' perception regarding the intersection of social media and journalism practice in Pakistan, what could be mixed method approach? Please explain in detail. Yeah, I would love to, but it'll take a couple of days. But I'll just say that a mixed method research, when you are doing perceptions, is basically self-perceptions. There is an issue with it that if journalists are asked, if any group of professionals is asked a question about what they are doing, the problem with it is that it is considered subjective. I had this problem when I was doing my PhD, but the answer to this is that there are theories which give validation to the subjective, because they say, okay, my self-perception about what I'm doing is as valid as somebody else's perception about me. Like it's not final, but it's part of the human reality. So what I would do is you mean mainstream journalism and social media, like citizen journalism? But yes, it's basically, I think I'll go for in-depth interviews and questionnaires. So what I'll do, because I have just done it a bit, I'm writing a paper on it. So it's about, I have circulated questionnaires and I'll do it randomly. It's not random, but it's kind of partly random. I forget the jargon at times, too old for that too. Like my PhD was back almost 20 years back. So So, but what I would do is that what I did is that I sent my questionnaire to people that I knew, and then I asked them to just circulate it amongst the people that they know. So it's kind of partly controlled. And then I went for in-depth interviews after I got mm, the results from my research, my questionnaire. So this is kind of basically explanatory sequential method that I use. And but for each and everybody, there are different ways of doing that. And I'll quote Herbert Blumer, who wrote this book, Symbolic Interactionism, who said that you should rigorously find your way in designing your method by reading, um, overseeing the field, but at the end, when you enter the field, you should submit yourself to the rigorous, what we call the ravages of the field, because when you enter a field, there might be many things that might not go as planned, and it's very true in a structure where you are doing mixed method research, where one of the instruments is kind of very organized, like it's quantitative, and you want to balance it, but you also want to balance it with the time that you put in. So you adjust in the field. You organize your FGDs, for example, or in-depth interviews in a way that both of these methods are just the instruments are used within the same time frame, and they help each other, not that they contradict each other. Okay, literature review, and who's this? Oh, sorry. Okay. Literature review as a method is often considered to be qualitative in nature, but what if the literature review is being conducted on previous studies that have quantitative data that is to be analyzed? Then is that considered to be a qualitative research? You remind me of a very interesting question at the University of Peshawar. A professor, very well-known professor. This is what PhD defense could do to you. And he presented his dissertation in defense. One of our students, who was just kind of in a habit of asking questions, asked him what were his primary sources. And he said the UN reports. And he said, no, UN reports are secondary sources. And then he was just like, he could have simply said, I didn't use primary sources, but he said UN reports, and it was so my point is that no, if you use literature review and you go into, this is my opinion, I might be wrong. So this is not like, it can't be quantitative because it's just a qualitative exploration into what has already been done. You might borrow an instrument from them, like a survey instrument, like something like that, but that borrowing doesn't have any original importance of an instrument until you use it, and you never use it as it was. And even if you use it, as the Greek philosopher said, you can't enter the same water twice. So basically, during literature review, we are not either, in my opinion, it's neither quantitative or qualitative. It's just developing a better understanding and a context. Yes, I think I answered that. Explanatory and yes, the explanatory one is the one where you use where you use the quantitative one first, and then it by the very nomenclature, explanatory sequential is where you have your quantitative instruments used first, and then the qualitative one explains it. Like your data that you got from the quantitative study is then validated through the qualitative one. Exploratory, on the other hand, is where you have done where you have already done your qualitative one, FGDs or in-depth interviews. I always advise, if you are going into focus group discussions, don't go into in-depth interviews. Just don't do it. I always encourage participant observation if you have time for that. But these two are very rigorous. Like when you do participant observation at the same time, you can do either of them. But if you go for 3 at the same time, I won't say it's wise. But that's the difference, basically. I hope I answered the question. What statistical approaches are recommended for mixed method research, community activism projects, 3-4 months, environmental participants? Which design is recommended for such? I would say that if there are 10 to 15 participants, I would say, and if you are doing some community research, I would say you can go either way. But I would say if you, for 14 participants, uh, I think it's pretty much qualitative. Like you don't need to get into a mixed method. But if you wish to do it, I'll go for an exploratory one. Like I'll just uh, keep on. I'll just somehow mix the convergent parallel with the exploratory one. Like I'll just uh, move on and keep in mind that I have a quantitative instrument to use. And if I get an opportunity to use it when I'm doing qualitative one, so I'll use it. And I won't go too organized because in a smaller community networks, the quantitative data is not that important. The only importance it has, in my opinion, is that you get validation, because qualitative data becomes very anecdotal at the time, and sometimes the fault lies with us because we let people speak forever, and we can't, and at times you can't do that. People love their voices. So I think I will go for an exploratory one, but I'll keep in mind that if a convergent one works for me, I'll go for it. Is like I go for a qualitative one, I'll go into focus group discussions. And for example, if I have given myself 1 week and there are 10 people over there, I'll give them the questionnaire, and then I'll go for another one within 2-3 days break, or within on the same day I'll use it again, and I'll carry on my qualitative one. So that's how I would like to do it. Example of research questions in each kind of research design. Yeah, research questions depend upon, it's a good question. Research questions always depend upon what do you want to know. Like some people don't connect it. Like I have seen researches where the title doesn't give you any sense of what's going on. And this is very important. Like why doesn't it connect? Because somehow your basic hypothesis, what did you wish to know, is not connected with your research questions. Make sure that, like, for example, I gave an example and I'll go back to that. Like, for example, and don't go into too many research questions. That's also not a good thing to do. Uh, like for example, if we want to know the mental well-being of patients who are, for example, cancer patients in certain hospitals, so I go for that. Here's the chat. Okay, it's oh, it's the poll going on. Should I continue speaking?
Yes, sir, you can continue. I have launched that.
Okay.
You can respond to that.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, so I needed to see the chat. Yeah, the research questions one. So if I want to know the like mental well-being and satisfaction are two different things. So mental well-being is also not the person cannot measure their mental well-being. So you are getting into a subjective realm. So you should know that. So the research questions to me, just roughly, would be uh, that asking patients whether they are getting their medication in time. Is the hospital staff aware of their patient, like clients' conditions, and what is the bigger structure which helps support people go through these phases? Like these are the 3 questions I would ask. There could be more, but you should keep in mind that when you add to research questions, you are adding to your burden of proving whatever you have asked, and it at times becomes very difficult. Can I can close it? No? Okay. Okay, thank you for I just share my experience tool method view this is which yes mixed method research instruments are the same. Like uh, no, hybridity is a different concept, but I would just say I'll go to my first point. Why do we do research? Like the complexity of human society and human situations and the need to understand human situations better is behind the urge to do mixed method research. So it's not a hybrid of both. Like it's just a standalone because not because of the instruments. Please keep in mind that instruments are not like instruments are important, but instruments are not the objective. You don't go for the instruments. You are going for a question to be answered. So the hybrid, it's not a hybrid model in that sense because it's a full-fledged individual. Like it has an identity of its own. It nothing to take away uh, from quantitative and qualitative alone. Like when I speak, I don't say that these are not right because these are incomplete, but because it's your decision to make whether you need a mixed method. Like the earlier question about community, I would go for a like a small community of 15. I would go for a qualitative one. I won't go for a quantitative one. But if I feel like maybe my interactions with individuals give me data that is not not verifiable, that goes to anecdotal. So I'll add to a quantitative instrument to that. But it's not about uh, the fusion of the methods, but it's about the question. It's really kind of all these people who are appreciating me. Okay. Research in humanities always remain elusive as all yeah, no, that's true. No, humanities has its problems. I think it's there are two questions to it. And who's saying that? Suhail. Yeah, Suhail. Uh, uh, like uh, humanities is going through a crisis, and it's not from today. In the 1970s, when I think it was Nixon or who it was, I don't remember. American president uh, inaugurated the Humanities Center, and he said, "This is the most neglected field of of knowledge, humanities." So we always have lived as underdogs. But this doesn't take anything away from for the contribution of humanities to human societies, and especially right now. Like I think we need a lot of philosophy, we need a lot of literature right now, because I come from journalism and I see the whole problem is ethical. So true, natural sciences contributes a lot to things that you can see, but then the functioning of society. I'll just quote Bertrand Russell. Russell said that when I was in England, he went to China. It was not this China. And he said, when I was in England and I was in the US, I thought that the human civilization is complete. We don't know that we don't need anything because we have quality of life and everything. All. But he said, and I said, we don't need the world. And Russell said that when I came to China and stayed, he got ill and he was stuck in China. And he said then my views changed, and I thought that if the rest of the world is just decimated in one day, Chinese culture and traditions will keep the civilization alive for another many thousands of years. So these ethical and moral contributions that humanity offers to human societies, and these will always uh, be uh, be worthy. Yes, literature and fine arts. I think it could be the same example. Yeah, like the crisis humanity is going through is basically if we go into quantitative research along with the qualitative one, we will know the value of the work we do and what people think about it. I won't ask any artist to conform to public opinion, but at least in a research structure, you will know what the trends are. Like, for example, Monet is still very valid because of the color schemes he used. Like, one can do a survey asking, why is he, like, I am fascinated by his paintings always. And many people are. Like, if you go to art galleries, people are just standing in front of Monet and you say, what did this guy do? And I was in Oslo last year. One guy said, look at the colors. So I think we can just have an overview of what's going on, and many others. Yes, thank you for sharing the email. I would love to respond, and if there is any delay, please don't be unhappy with me, because there is a time. But it must that the scientific research changes. Yes, that's very true. That's very true. That scientific research, and I think there is a great need to collaborate. Like like we have, like, the from the encyclopedists uh, onwards, we had qualified classified knowledge, but it was never meant to be compartmentalized. Like, the classification of different disciplines is not because we wish to just have different world. Like, somebody working in sociology is in a different world, and somebody in physics is in a different world, or somebody in journalism is in a different world. The reason for the whole encyclopedist movement was to save knowledge, like to make sure that knowledge is not destroyed and our quest for knowledge is useful. But uh, uh, but at the same time, it's very important to collaborate and to, like, I give you one example. Like, climate change, for example, is something which brings together natural sciences and humanities. For example, uh, COVID-19 united the world. Like, how were people going to know what research is going on? The only window was journalism at that time, and how did we survive? You look at art, the way art flourished during these eras. So I think there is more need to have what we call interdisciplinary research, not losing your identity, but collaborating with other disciplines, and all of these things. I think it's very important. So I think those were the questions.
We have another one, last one, I guess. Mohammed Saleh just.
Yeah, yes, I answered Saleh's question.
Okay.
We talk a lot anyways. Saleh.
So I guess that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, Dr. Altaf, for
Thank you.
such an amazing session. And I will share you can share the post-webinar materials with me if you want to share any, and then I will share it with the recording as well.
Yeah, I'll share these by the weekend. I'm a bit tied up today.
Sure, sir, sure.
But you will have those surely. If I don't share, please send me a reminder Friday. Yeah,
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We'll call it off. Thank you. Bye.